Okay, so that's all the features of the object system. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kinds of clause in a defined class. You can put them in any order. The only one that there should be more than one of is method, because the other ones each take multiple arguments, right? You don't say instance vars A, instance vars B. You say instance vars A this value, B this value, right? So only one instance vars, only one class vars, only one parent. Again, it can have multiple parents, but they're all in the same parent clause. Only one default method, only one initialize. But a method per message. Okay? So, oh, and the other thing that should go in some list someplace, is the special form set bang, which is the only new piece of actual scheme that we've learned this week. Everything else we've been talking about is part of the language implemented by the file obj.scum. Obj.scum is written in scheme. That's the thing I want to really emphasize strongly. There's nothing that we've done this week that you can't do in plain ordinary scheme. Next week, we're going to see how that happens. Oh yeah, vocabulary. And a piece of vocabulary that we're going to see again next week, but we saw last week, and I want to remind you of it, is dispatch procedure. So in our system, objects are represented by dispatch procedures. A dispatch procedure takes a message as argument and returns a method. And that's different from last week. When we did message passing last week, it took a message as argument and just did whatever that message wants. Okay? Here, we're saying you call the dispatch procedure with a certain message, and you get back a method. We can, I can show you that, actually. Oops. Okay. Let's call PP, sorry. There's the method. Okay? So when we invoke it, what's really going on is something like this. Right? So that's basically what ask does. It does a procedure call to the object, which is to say to the object's dispatch procedure. Those are the same thing. And it gets back a method, and then it calls the method with any additional arguments you might have given. You don't have to write it like this because we wrote ask, but ask is a really simple procedure. There's a little bit of hair about, parent inheritance stuff and how that works, but most of that complexity is actually inside the dispatch procedure in the else clause of that cond. Okay, let me say a little word before we go about the J language. It's more complicated than this. The way they do object-oriented programming is full of details. For example, we treat, once they're made, we treat all our instantiation variables and instance variables and class variables the same way in terms of how visible they are to other objects. Namely, we automatically provide a method that lets you get the value of the variable. And we do that, again, mainly for debugging purposes. But we don't provide a method that lets you set the value of the variable. In Java, for each variable, you have to say how accessible to other classes you want it to be. In Java, it's a strongly typed language, which means you specify the types of variables rather than the types of actual data. We talked last week about type tag data versus variables that say what type is in them. And Java is that kind of language. So you have to say when you're declaring these variables, not just this is an instance variable, but this is an instance variable of type integer. In many other ways, it's more complicated than what we're doing here. That's neither good nor bad, really. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Again, if you're doing a team of 5,000 programmers, maybe you do want to really pin down every detail about how your object class works and how it interacts with other classes. If you're just learning about object-oriented programming, on the other hand, the simpler the better, I would say, for your first time around. So I hope that what we've done this week, even though it's not the same as Java, will prepare you